Hello friends, Christy here over at Crafty Christy's Creations, and today I'm going to show you how to make a quick 2-layer graduation cake topper. So you can see here I went ahead and made one, so let's go ahead and just pull this over to the side and we'll get started. And I'm using for the congrats, this is South Australia font, and then it's Helsinki font for graduate. So we're going to start off, I'm using my flexi tools, or flexi shapes. I'm going to use this star, and I'm going to draw a star. And we want it about 6 inches. That's about the size we want for cake topper. And then once I've got that down, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to do convert to path. You can no longer edit the shape. Hitting V on my keyboard to get out of that. And I'm going to go ahead and change that width up to 6 inches. Okay. I am going to go ahead and fill that in with a black fill, and then I'm going to get rid of the outline color. I don't really love the shape of this star. I don't think it's very star shaped. So I'm going to double click on the outline, and now we're doing point editing. And what I'm going to do is grab these points, and I can pull them in a little bit and kind of readjust the look of my star some here. This is kind of an optional step, or if you have a better looking star that you like. I think that looks more star shaped than what was there. I'm going to pull this out a little bit. Okay, pulled those in a little too far. Okay, still not quite perfect, but let's see. I think stars are the hardest shape to make. All right, it's not perfect, but it'll have to do. Do you find this helpful? Make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any future Silhouette Studio tutorials. Now let's jump back in where we left off. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this, and I'm going to make it smaller. So I am going to go up to Edit, Copy, or Control+C, and then Edit, Control+F is going to be paste in front. So it made another copy. So you can see now I have 2 copies. So I'm going to do Control-Z to undo that move. And this one I'm going to make yellow. I'm going to get rid of that outline, and I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt, or Option on a Mac. And what that's going to do as I make this a little bit smaller, it's going to make it smaller from all directions, so it's kind of still centered on there. And now we've got that little background. If you want to make sure it's centered, go ahead and grab both, and then I'm just going to center these to the page. That'll center them both together as well. And then I'm going to grab my text tool, and we're going to go ahead and write out our congrats. And then on another line, I'm going to write out graduate. You can write out, whatever you want if you want to personalize this. I've got mine set that this playlist is my default font. So that's why mine might look different than yours. But I'm going to come over here to my fonts. I'm going to scroll up to the top, and this will have my frequently or last used ones here. And like I said, this South Australia is what I use for congrats. I can scoot that out of the way, and then graduate. Go back to the top. And what did I say? I used Helsinki. That is not there. We'll scroll through. Or I can come up here and I can type it in. And there it is. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and color these with black as well. I'm going to leave the outlines on there. The next thing I need to do is go ahead and weld these together. So I'm going to open my Modify panel with the word Graduate selected, and I'm going to hit Weld. And then I'm going to hit Make Compound Path. So when I hit Weld, you see because nothing is overlapping, it went ahead and made each letter that I can move around. So I'm going to do Control-Z to undo that move. So I'm going to grab the word Graduate, and I'm going to make it a compound path. Now you see it's all just one bounding box around all the letters again. And then with congrats, again, I'm going to weld, especially because it's that cursive font. It will get rid of this little piece here, and all the little overlapping pieces will be one. So weld. Now you can see each of these letters don't touch anything, so they're on their own bounding box. And now we're going to hit make compound path, and now it's all one bounding box. And then we're going to go ahead and resize these. So again, I like to do Shift and Alt or Option on a Mac, and that just squeezes it down to the center. And I'm just going to add this here. We're going to do the same thing with graduate. Make that smaller, and I'm going to add it here. You can see right now I left that red background on there, and I did that because we're going to actually be subtracting these words from the yellow. We're going to cut it out from the yellow so it'll shine through from the layer behind it. And the other thing we're going to do, we're going to add a point value to our outline on the word congrats to make it thicker. So I think these are easier to see if you do it in the same color. So I'm going to do 1.5. That just makes it a little bit thicker. It'll be easier to kind of cut that out. Oop, and I moved the wrong piece. All right, so I just undid that move, so Control Z. I'm going to grab this, and I'm just going to use my arrow keys to kind of get that centered up a little bit better. I like that right there. Okay, now let's go ahead and build out our graduation cap. So for this, we're going to use our different shaper tools here. For the top part of it, I'm going to use the diamond, and we're going to do it kind of sideways. Right click, convert to path. And when you convert it to path, it puts that bounding box around it, and it gets rid of the point editing. And then I'm going to come over here again, and I'm going to grab this shape, kind of a hexagon-y type shape, and I'm going to add that. We're going to make the point go up. And again, I'm going to right click, convert to path. All right. Whoop. And I'm going to delete that one. I'm going to hit V on my keyboard to get my little pointer mouse back. So these are our two shapes, and I just want to kind of rotate this one a little bit so the bottom is flat. I'm going to go ahead and make these black and get rid of that outline. And then what we're going to do is layer these over each other, kind of get them where we need. Maybe this diamond, I think this bottom piece needs to be a little smaller. Again, I like to go from the center, so Shift and Alt or Option on a Mac, and that's just going to squeeze from the center. Okay, I've got those lined up pretty well. I think I like the way that looks. And then it probably still needs to be a little bit smaller. I think this part's probably too tall. So I'm just going to squeeze that up. And then I'm going to double tap. Now I'm in my point editing for this shape. And I just like to pull this out, make it a little bit more square. Okay, I like the look of that. I'm going to grab both of these shapes. We're going to go over to our modify panel, and we're going to weld. That's going to turn it into one shape. And now we're going to make our tassel. Going to make a nice thin rectangle here. I'm going to get rid of that line color. And then on top of that, I'm going to do a small circle or an oval. Hit V on my keyboard so I don't make another one. That's just because the way my settings are made. I'm going to make that black and get rid of the line color. And that needs to be a little bit smaller. So again, Shift and Alt or Option on that Mac. And then I'm going to grab the rounded rectangle. We'll make that over here. V on my keyboard. Right click, convert to path. That gets rid of those dots. And now I'm going to make that black without the outline. And this is going to go on the bottom half. This is kind of the part where it spreads out a little bit. I want this to be a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to widen that out a little bit. All right, I think that looks pretty good. This circle probably needs a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to use my arrow keys to move it over a little bit. Actually, I'm going to delete that oval. I want it to be more circular. We're just going to kind of try that again. That looks better. V on my keyboard. Give it a black color. Get rid of the outline. I like the look of that a little better. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So Shift and Alt to get it from the center. This I want to be a little taller. Okay, I'm going to select all three of those shapes, and then I can either right click and do Weld this way, or I can go to the Modify panel. But I like the look of that. And I'm going to go ahead and put it right here. Again, I'm going to grab both those shapes, right click, and Weld. And now I can just resize this to the top. I just kind of like to pull it down, see where it fits. I want these pieces to not be touching, so I'm going to make that a little higher up. So again, Shift and Alt, resize it. I want it to be kind of sized so the points are lined up. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Shift and Alt while I resize. Bring it up a bit. Okay, I think that looks good there. Those are going to overlap. It's just going to have to be okay with it. I can make this bigger. And I think right there, it's just going to overlap right there. I'm going to be okay with that. And then the other part that we could do is we can also put in the year, so 2022. V on my keyboard. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to use that Helsinki font again. Scroll up to the top. And then I'm going to go ahead. I'll make that yellow. So you've got options here. You can either make this yellow and cut it out yellow on there. Or what I'm going to do is actually just cut it out of this. Whoops. Control Z to undo that move. So now what I'm going to do is we've got a couple different steps here. So first thing I'm going to do, I want to cut these numbers out of this black graduation cap. So I've got the number selected. I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to grab my graduation cap. We're going to go to the Modify panel, and we're going to hit Subtract. So now you can see the hat, the 22 is cut out. The 2022. Except that little part in the center, when you cut it out, when you go to cut this out of paper, that center piece is going to fall out. So let's Control Z, let's undo that. And we're going to do like what we did with our stencil lesson. We're going to come over here. I'm going to make a thin rectangle. It doesn't matter what color this is. I just like to make it a opposing color so I can see where it's going to go. And I'm going to cut open the 0. And that, we're going to grab the 2022 and this little line that I made. And now we're going to hit Subtract. And what that did is it opened up my 0. So now when I take... I'm going to have to grab each of these pieces of the 2022, and I can make them a compound path. So now they're all one piece again. Okay. Control Z to undo the move. And now with that selected and with the hat selected, now I can subtract. And now that this part will all stay there. Okay. So we've got that. Now what we can do, we're going to take this 2022. Now the problem is we can see where this part behind it is going to overlap behind, so it's going to cut some of our part of the 2022. So I'm just going to put this back down where I want it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy. So I'm going to take this one and I am going to make a copy, and I'm going to duplicate to the left. So now I can take this copy and I'm going to grab my yellow. We're going to go back to the modify panel, and this time we're going to hit divide. And what that's going to do is leave us lots of pieces. So now it's cut that out. I can go ahead and delete that piece. This part of the yellow, I'm just going to delete. And now we've got this part yellow, and all of this is now black. It's made that piece, but you still have your star. So Control Z. So this was the other part of our graduation cap. So I'm going to delete that. And now with this one, what we can do here now is I can duplicate to the right, and it's going to put it back where it was. All right, so now we got to figure out how we're going to go ahead and fill this in. And really probably what we should have done was do this part first and then done the 2022. But what we can do now is grab this black and our graduation cap, again to the modify panel, and we're going to hit divide. So now we've got this graduation cap piece we can get rid of. We've got this part that we can also get rid of. This was the leftovers there. And then we've got this we can get rid of. Oh, you know what? I'm hitting Control and undo. Nope, that should have been there. Okay. Well, that should be fine. We're going to take this yellow and we're going to move it to the back. So send to the back. So now we won't worry about that. So now again, I'm just going to grab our graduation cap and our black. We're going to hit divide. And I'm going to get rid of the graduation cap, delete the little piece here, and delete that, and delete all of that. So now if I take this one and send it to the back, there's the rest of our design. We're going to take this, and now we're going to duplicate it back to the right. Now I'm going to grab this black and my graduation cap, and now we're going to weld. So now it's all one piece. Again, we're going to send it to the back. There's the rest of our stuff. This graduate, congrats, and we're going to grab the yellow and we're going to subtract. It doesn't look like anything right now, but if I pull my yellow, you can see it cut all of that out. So that's what we want. So Control Z to undo that move. It's not going to keep the little pieces in the O, so we know we can actually undo Control Z. So we've got that piece. Oh, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Okay. So that's all intact. So we need to do that stencil part again to go ahead and get these letters ready so that when they cut out, they'll stay just like they are. We've got this little bitty spot right here in the S. I'm going to double tap, and you can see it brings up that point editing. We're going to zoom in. And this little piece right here, I don't think it's going to let us fix that. Okay, we'll have to leave that alone. But this right here, we can go ahead and delete that. And that got rid of the center. We can just do a stencil part there. Okay. So now we're going to go back and we're going to make ourselves a little stencil. And they don't have to be very thick. I'm going to go ahead and give that a different color. And we can decide where we want to put it on here. You can angle it however you want. I'm going to hold down Alt or Option on a Mac to pull over another copy. We can either do it this way, or with this G, we can also come in with our eraser tool. And if we do, let's see, how do I size that down? Size. I'm going to scroll that size down really small, and then I can come in right here. Let's make it 0.005. Well, that seems to be as small as you can make it. So I can come in here and I can get rid of part of that black part. And that is what that's going to do, is that's going to basically create our space. So we can do it that way with the G. Undo, undo. So that's an option. Or again, V on my computer. We can bring this. We can grab this. And then I can decide to actually turn this and put it right there as well. And just open up this G right here. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. And I can just open up that G right there. And then we need to make another one. So Alt or Option to drag another copy. And then right here, we can open up this G right here. A little bit shorter. And these don't have to be really thick because it's just going to cut it out. Let's try to scoot that. Okay, I think I like that right there. And then we've got to do something with our A. So again, Alt or Option to click and drag. We can turn that. And I'm going to put it, like it right there. So now what we need to do is select our rectangle and our letters, and then what we're going to do is back to our modify panel, and we're going to hit subtract. And it didn't cut a ton right there, so I'm going to Control Z. We need to make that a bit wider. Okay, so select our rectangle, subtract. That looks better. Again, my rectangle and my G, subtract. And we'll just keep doing that, grabbing both pieces. I'm holding down Shift to grab both pieces, Control Z. That needs to be a little bit wider as well. So I'm going to select just that piece, pull that, make it a little bit wider. Select both, subtract. It's not quite wide enough. It's not grabbing all the spots. Okay. Subtract. That's better. And then we'll do our A, subtract. That wasn't thick enough. Subtract. There we go. Okay, so that looks good there. Now we can go ahead and zoom back out. So I'm just doing Control and the minus sign to zoom back out. And now we're going to grab all of our pieces of our word congrats. So I'm just holding down Shift and clicking on all my pieces. And again, we're going to make that a compound path. So now the bounding box is around the whole word. And so with that still selected, I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to grab my yellow star, and now we're going to hit subtract again. It doesn't look like anything changed because it was already black. But now if I move my congrat or my yellow star, you can see the congrats is cut out of it. And now those are probably still too thin on that O to really get something through there. So now what I can do, and same thing right here, what we can do now is we can go ahead and make that rectangle again. We can, and V on my keyboard, let's delete that second one. They're harder to grab when they don't have a fill color. Let's go ahead and give that a fill color. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to weld it because we're going to add this area back in. So the white is what has been subtracted out. So now if we add this area back into the O, I'm just going to Alt and make a copy over here that we'll use on the A. But now if I grab this and my yellow piece and we weld, you can see it totally fixed that O, and now it's got two pieces. I'm going to Control Z to undo. That's probably too thick, and we lost some of the detail in that O. So I'm going to make that a little bit thinner. Grabbing both pieces again to my Modify panel and weld this time. So there's my O. This is going to be a bit thinner and doesn't need to be quite as tall. But we have to keep in mind we're cutting this out of cardstock, so it does need a little bit of thickness to it. This does not want to get any thicker. So what I can do is I can come up here and I can go to the width and we can do 0.1. Now it's got some thickness to it. Okay. We can go ahead and make that a little bit thinner. We can make it a lot shorter. That's better. We'll rotate. And again, with that piece selected, I'm going to select my star and we're going to hit weld. Now, my letters might look kind of funny, but now they are fixed. We're just going to kind of eyeball where that goes right there. We probably should have made a copy to the side and fixed it and brought it back just to keep our sizing right. But I think that's correct right where I want it. So now I'm going to send that backwards. Oop. Control Z to undo. Just want to send it back one layer. Nope. So now we have to find our graduate word. So let's go ahead. We'll send this one to the back. We'll send the black to the back. Now our graduate word is here. And we're going to do the same thing with graduate. We're going to bring in our little stencils. And we're just going to make some little stencils for our letters here to open those up. I'm going to make these I'm going to make these kind of skinny. I don't need a ton of opening on here, but I do need a little bit. That looks good. Alt or Option over to the A. And then with the A, I think I'm only going to open up from the bottom there. And then we'll come over to the D. I like to line it up right on the edge. The A will try to come right to the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to grab my first one here and holding down Shift, grab the word graduate, and we're going to subtract. We'll do the same with the A, the D, and the other A. Okay, those look pretty good. So now you can see we've still got the red outline on these. So as I grab all of these and we subtract it, it'll be more noticeable because it'll no longer have that red line. I'm just going to make these a compound path. So there's a bounding box around the entire thing. And holding down Shift, I am grabbing my yellow star. And again, we are going to subtract. Oh, and we must have missed this one. So we'll grab that and our star and subtract. And now you see there's no more red lines behind it because when we pull our star over, you can see that is all pulled out. So Control Z to undo that move. So we'll zoom back out here. This is extra. Zoom out some more. Okay, so now what we're left with is we've got this black star that with our graduation cap on top and our yellow half star that'll sit on top of that. And that is going to be your cake topper. So I'm undoing that. So now we can go ahead and cut it out, and I'll show you what it looks like when we put it together. Okay, I've got both of my pieces cut out here. I am going to use some spray glue to connect them. I've got, these are like shish kebab skewers, so I can just cut them down. And then we're going to use some hot glue to attach these to the back. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and just apply some glue to this. Like I said, I'm using some spray glue. And I find this easier when I've got all these small intricate pieces, or you can, you know, use a little glue, liquid glue on there. And I'm just gonna give that a light spray. That's probably more than I need. I am still practicing with how to be effective with this spray glue. I'm fairly certain that I bought that at the Dollar Tree, perhaps. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over. It does warp the paper a little bit when it is this saturated. So you want to practice and just use a very, very light coat. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball where this goes. I want to make sure I have a nice even border all the way around. Once I like where it's at, I'm going to go ahead and just press down my outer star. And then we can come in and press down these inner pieces as well. And you might just have to hold these layers together for a minute or two. Let them get good and connected. The other thing you can do is set something heavy on them for a little while to let it get good and dry. I can always come back in and touch up some edges if I need to with some liquid glue. All right, that looks pretty good there. We'll go ahead and flip this over. And from here, I can go ahead and give this another good press to get everything in the right spot. And then for my skewers, I'm gonna use 2. And depending on how tall, you know, the cake is and how tall you want this to be, you can make these however tall you need. Or they've got regular like cake topper skewers that you can use, but this is what I have on hand. So I'm just gonna use these. I made a little indentation there, and then I'm just gonna break them off. This part nobody's really gonna see. This is what goes on the back. I do wanna try to get a bit of a clean cut if I can, but that's okay. So those are, you know, the same height now. And I'm just gonna set them right there. And then, let's see, looks like this is ready. I'm gonna go ahead and just put some glue on my steak. And then I'll just line that up and set it down right there. And then I want to try to put the same amount of glue on this one, so I'm just going to put a line of glue on my paper. And then I'm just going to set my steak in that. Okay, so those are, you know, I've got the points at about the same height. And then this will also help support with the 2 steaks. You could do 1 or 2, but I think I like the 2 because this is a wider piece here. But there you have it. So there is our 2022 Congrats Graduate Cake Topper.